The year is 1623, and the location is the small village of Lovelace End in England. The villagers have been suffering from strange afflictions that are not only painful, but also mysterious. These include fits, cramps, contortions, and even paralysis. And all of this seems to be happening at random with no rhyme or reason. One day, 3 young women, Mary Walford, Margaret, and their mother, were accused of being behind these ailments. Why? Because they were all 3, wait for it, spinsters. Yep, you heard that right. Their crime was they were single. And apparently in the eyes of God, that made them witches. These accusations led to the infamous Pendle witch trials, where these women, along with many others, were put on trial for allegedly using witchcraft to harm others in the community. What really makes this story bone-chilling is that all the accusations were based on a confession that may or may not have been coerced. Welcome to our channel, where today we'll be exploring this horrific event and finding out if the so-called witches were truly guilty, or if they were just unfortunate victims of circumstance. Lovelace End was a quiet village, with a population of around 800 people. But everything changed when 3 young women, Mary Walford, Margaret, and her mother, were accused of practicing witchcraft. Apparently these 3 women had been singled out because they were all spinsters, and back then that was a real problem. You see, being unmarried in a certain age was seen as an invitation to deviltry and witchcraft. So when strange things started happening in the village, they were the perfect scapegoats. It all began when a woman named Janet Device went to visit a neighbor, and upon her return home, she collapsed. She was then taken to a local wise woman, who after some time was able to raise her from her ailment. However, while the wise woman was performing her ritual, another woman named Anne Whittle entered the room and accused Janet of being a witch. Accusations that would later prove to be the catalyst for the downfall of not only Janet, but also many others. As Anne continued to rail against Janet, other women in the village began to come forward with their own stories of strange occurrences, and soon enough, a full-blown witch hunt was underway. With the stakes being higher than ever, the pressure to confess grew increasingly intense. And under such duress, even the most innocent of souls might crack. And that is exactly what happened with Mary Margaret and her mother. In a moment of desperation, they confessed to the charges brought against them, implicating themselves in a plot to harm the village. With confessions in hand, the authorities were convinced that they had their witches. But there's more. Mary Margaret and her mother were not the only ones who confessed. Over the next few weeks, more than a dozen people came forward with their own tales of witchcraft and devil worship. And with each confession, more and more people were drawn into the maelstrom. However, as time went on, doubts began to creep in. You see, many of these confessions were made under extreme duress. And as the trials dragged on, it became clear that these so-called witches were not only innocent, but they were also victims of a horrifying hoax. In fact, one of the main accusers, Anne Whittle, was later found to be mentally unstable. Yet despite the mounting evidence of their innocence, these women were put to death. Some were hanged, while others were burned at the stake, all because they were unlucky enough to be in the wrong place at the wrong time and confessed to crimes they did not commit. So what can we learn from this horrific event? Perhaps that sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction. And in the dark annals of history, there are many more instances where innocent people were persecuted for crimes they did not commit. Now it's time to hear from you. What do you think? Were the Hex Hollow witches truly guilty, or were they just unfortunate victims of circumstance? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you liked this video, be sure to subscribe for more content like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.